In a small, quiet village nestled between rolling hills, life moved at its own steady pace. The people in the village weren't rich, nor did they dream of vast fortunes. They were farmers, and their livelihoods depended on the land they worked. The earth was both their companion and their challenge, for it gave them life, but also demanded hard work in return. The village was dotted with humble homes, each one surrounded by fields of crops. Wheat, barley, corn, and vegetables grew in neat rows, but the villagers knew that no crop was ever guaranteed. The seasons were unpredictable, and a drought or a storm could ruin months of hard work in a single day. Yet, the villagers didn't complain. They had learned to live with the rhythm of nature, accepting its unpredictability as a part of life. Among the villagers was a man named Amit. He had lived in the village his entire life, and the land he farmed had been passed down through generations. Amit's father had taught him the ways of the soil, how to plant seeds with patience, how to nurture crops with care, and how to work through the toughest seasons. Amit wasn't wealthy, but he wasn't poor either. He had enough to eat, a roof over his head, and a family that loved him. Yet, the heavy burden of the land sometimes wore on him. During particularly difficult seasons, when the rains didn't come or the crops failed, he would look at the land and wonder if he could keep going. One year, after a particularly dry season, Amit faced a choice. His crops had withered, and the village's harvest was lean. Many of the other farmers were in the same situation, their hopes dashed. The people of the village gathered to discuss what they could do, but the answer was always the same. There was little they could control. One evening, after a long day in the fields, Amit sat down beside an old oak tree at the edge of his land. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow across the hills. He looked at the small village below, the smoke rising from chimneys, and the families returning to their homes. Despite the hardships, the village was still standing. It wasn't wealth that made the village strong, Amit realized. It was the way the people supported one another. In times of hardship, they shared what they had. If one family's crops had failed, the others would pitch in. If someone was ill, the village would come together to help. It was a community held together by the land and by each other. As the sun disappeared behind the hills, Amit stood up, wiping the dirt from his hands. He didn't know what the future held, but he understood one thing clearly. He wasn't alone. Together, the villagers would weather the storm. And so, Amit went back to his fields with renewed determination. It wasn't riches that made life worth living, he thought, but the connections they had with each other and the strength they drew from the land. As long as they kept working, kept sharing, and kept caring for one another, they would find a way to make it through.